Okay, so this is y'all's user training for eSPACE Event Scheduler. So just to give you a quick summary of what we typically go over in this meeting, we're going to go over the grids on your dashboard, which I am logged in as Lisa here. She is an admin. She sees more, but just in case I have to review any admin settings, I always log in as an admin just in case, but I'll just explain the ones that you guys will see. And we'll spend most of our time on adding an event. There's two options up here to do it. The quick one's going to skip some stuff because it's like a shorter version. The bigger events, you will typically then start off with add event option. And then hopefully we have time at the end to go over some calendar views, some good filter options, because this is where you guys are going to see all of the events, and then some report options as well. Okay, so when you guys submit an event, or actually we have a draft section, so let's start on there. If you open something and you don't make it to submitting, it will stay in a draft state. It's going to stay saved and then this draft section. So there's two here in Lisa's dashboard, so that's why she has a draft section. If both of these get submitted and there are no other drafts, this whole section will disappear from the dashboard. So just keep in mind, unless you have drafts, you won't see a draft section. But that just means she started these, she didn't submit them for approval. She could be waiting on details, whatever the reason is. But when things are in a draft mode, it's very important to know that whatever you've requested, such as the space, resource, or service, it's not officially been reserved for you in your event until it is submitted for approval. So as long as things are lingering here in draft, your progress is saved. But if someone, let's just say, chooses the same room as you, they submit their event before you do, technically their event, it's first come, first serve, right? So don't keep things in a draft state longer than they need to be. Now, once you guys submit them for approval, it will pop into this section on your dashboard, pending approval. And then at this point, you're just waiting to get a notification or just to wait to see it visibly go from this section to your My Approved Events section, which means on a regular user's dashboard, they're only going to see their own events versus an admin's going to see everybody's. So as a user, you guys are going to rely more heavily on one of the calendar views. And there's different ones, and you can click between them, and we're going to review most of those at the end. At the very top, you will have a master search bar. This is going to be a really useful tool because let's just say you don't even remember the whole name of an event, but you know it has something to do with camp or BSF or Bible study or women's or banquet or whatever. You could search by keywords and then you'll get so many results that pop down, maybe in a drop-down list. Click on the one that you want, click the word go. It will take you to that event in eSPACE, but as a regular user, you can only edit events that you are the owner of or have been made the editor of. And I'm going to explain that more when we get to creating an event. So just know you can go see the event and all the details. You can review everything. There's not necessarily going to be anything hidden from you that an admin can see. You'll still see everything. You just can't make any changes unless you are the owner or you have been made an editor of somebody else's event. You have a lower level of permission than an admin. So at the very top, you guys are all going to see the exact same thing. And there's a lot of options, especially under help, that I want to make sure I point out. But just starting over on the far left-hand side, the reason why it says eSPACE Event Scheduler is because Event Scheduler is one of our three main products that we have. Our other two are going to be Facility Space. So this one's not active on your subscription right now, but this is the one that handles the integrations for doors, digital signage, and HVC. And then there is the Work Order and Asset Management one. So if you add those later, or if your admin adds them later to your subscription, you could also be given access to those modules. Now, under help, you're going to have things like the knowledge base articles. And just like you Google search things, I'm sure all of the time to find a quick answer to a question that you have, that's exactly what this is meant to imitate. So search whatever you want in here. On the front page, it will have the video tutorials, and you will see the articles that are about advanced settings and basic settings, but you guys don't have access to these in eSPACE because only admins can actually see the settings and make changes. But you can read about them if you're curious. But like I said, most of the time you will probably just be searching things. A common search that users do is like, what's the difference between occurrences versus schedules on an event? And there is a difference, and we aren't going to go over it in training, but let's say down the road, you forget, you don't want to watch the whole video over again, search whatever it is that you want. Each article comes with screenshots, step-by-step instructions. They're over very specific subjects. So hopefully that's useful to you guys. And then under community space, this is where you can access the page where you can interact with other users. You can even look at people's feature requests. And it is important to note that anything that we change in eSPACE, or the reason why we would add a new feature or change an existing one, is because it's gotten a certain percentage of votes on community space. So one key important thing to know there is before you post your own feature request, make sure that you search and have verified that nobody else has already posted it, because you don't want to split the vote. That's not going to help your idea get into production. You want to work collectively together as our customers to get those things seen and heard by our developers. To upvote, you're simply just going to click an up arrow. It's right next to the title of whatever that feature request is. So just be looking for that arrow over on the far right-hand side. Now for these webinars, these are going to be a short overview of Event Scheduler and a work order and asset management. So that could be helpful to you guys because you don't have that one right now. So if you're curious about it, you can go see it. But it's also a great way to just, if you have a new staff member comes on board, they need a quick intro into Event Scheduler, that's another good reason to join those webinars. Or if you simply want to ask the question and get an answer live. A lot of people coming over from ServiceU are of course joining those. So they tend to ask the same questions. They probably have similar questions to you guys. If you want to join those, again, learn from others, see what they're asking. That's going to be a great way to do that. Those are currently on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And then this training is going to talk about additional training that you guys might want to purchase. So currently we're in the last hour of training that's already been purchased. So if you want to purchase additional hours of training, you can always do that at any point in time for whatever the reason may be. Now, the gift icon is how we alert people about new features because we have a very active development team. We change things, alter things, maybe we fix something minor. A lot of that stuff happens on a weekly basis. So, and sometimes we have very active weeks. So especially if you see something that looks different, and if you don't remember it being there the day before, the week before, you want to know why did that change? Why did that get added? Go there, look at the most recent articles to then learn more about those new features and why we made those changes to eSPACE. And hopefully you guys know already by now, but under your profile icon, if you click on profile, this is where you can change your name or your email. And then if you go to my notifications, which I am going to click on, and we go to preferences, it's important to know that as a new user, all of the email notifications are automatically on. So if you ever want to turn off any of these email notifications in your own eSPACE account, just like any subscription-based company, you guys can always manage what emails come to you. You're just going to manage it in your own eSPACE account under My Notifications. And then right here, this is talking about the mobile app. In case you guys didn't know already, we do have a free native mobile app for Android and iPhone. So if you want to sign in with the same username and password, you'll have the same level of permission. You can enable push notifications to the app, but you can also see things like the daily agenda and monthly calendar views. You'll be able to add events in the app, and you can see your dashboard. That way you can see which of yours are still pending versus which of yours are approved.
And is this app just for users in eSPACE?
Yes, they have to already have been added as an eSPACE user. Otherwise, they won't be able to sign in.
Okay, and how did you get to that? Oh,
well, if you just want to sign in on the app, you're going to go to your app store. You're going to go to the Android store or the iPhone store. You're going to search eSPACE, it's the product name, and then download the app and then just sign in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So just one other clarification. So Lisa, if you haven't added them as a user, they won't be able to sign in.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get to the main thing for today, which is going to be adding an event. So like I said, really early on, there's a slight difference between these two options. The quick one will skip some things that are in add event, because add event is meant to be for like the bigger events. You know, you're already going to need to add setup details and all these instructions to facilities. You know, you're going to have to fill out forms. You need all the bells and whistles. That's what the bigger option is for. If it's something quick, you just want to skip some things because you just need to hurry up and make me schedule a last minute room for a meeting. That's the reason why people would go with quick event create. So you can actually seamlessly transition from the quick one to the bigger one, because if you're in the middle of editing and then you realize, no, I really do need to add setup details or whatever else it needs to be, you can transition. I'll actually show you what that looks like now.
Okay.
So let's start with the quick event create. We're going to name it. This first and foremost is going to be an internal description about the event, whatever you want to relay to other staff members, but only eSPACE users that sign in will be able to see the internal description. On a different page, I'll show you where the external one is. And then of course we got the basic things, right? We've got to put in a date. We've got to put in a start time. I'll just set it for during lunch. Now this doesn't have a red asterisk, so you don't have to put in a setup and teardown time, but because everything in eSPACE, you're booking something. This right now says I'm only booking the room from noon to 1. So if I'm going to show up early or stay late outside of my event time, well, somebody could book their event up into the start time, or they could book it right up against this end time, because I'm only telling people I will physically be in this room during these times. So if you're going to show up early, if you're going to stay late, just remember to set up a setup and a teardown time, because it does help prevent somebody else from booking that event right up until the start time or end time of yours. Now, if the event is going to happen more than just this one particular day, it's going to be a multi-day event, it's going to be weekly, whatever that happens to be, it's going to reoccur. So we're going to change this to being, maybe it repeats daily, weekly on Friday, monthly on the second Friday, annually on June 9th, or we could do custom. Custom is a great way to pick dates that they don't have anything to do with each other. There's no set pattern, but these are the dates that you need. Or a lot of people for a fall event, they'll pick every single day and automatically exclude Labor Day, maybe Harvest Festival, Thanksgiving, Black Friday. They pick all the other days that they want. As long as you keep clicking this black arrow right here, you can keep going quite a ways out into the future, and you can pick as many dates as you need. Now, if you need the traditional option, I'm going to go back to weekly on Friday. Here's a second way to customize. Now I can do every single day of the week or just every weekday. Recurs every 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however much I toggle it up and down. And of course, all things do have to come to an end at some point. So you can either set a hard end date or you can have it reoccur for the max amount, which is 100. On a different page, there's a way to extend this. But at any one time, you can set an event to reoccur up to 100 occurrences. And then so for these options right here, is public, is offsite, is virtual. These options are very different than how it was in Service U. So it's important to make sure we understand this part. If it's public, that means like if you're integrating with your website, if you don't want the event to get posted, you need to have this toggled off, because then it's considered private, and that means only people who physically log into eSPACE and look at the calendar would be able to see it. But if you want it to integrate with your website and you want it to get posted there, it needs to be set as public. Now, if the event is going to be off-site, meaning not in the building, not on your campus, you're going to want to make sure you toggle this on and put in either an address of a place, or you could simply put in the name of a place. And if it's virtual, you're going to select this and you're going to put in some type of meeting link. The meeting link could be from Google, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever that happens to be for you guys. And then category, this is another thing that's different. What Service U refer to as ministries and departments are going to be your event categories. So you're just going to select one here. I'll just go with this one for example's sake. And if for whatever reason, if you needed to select more than one, you can select more than one. Now you won't see this part because you're not an admin. For you, it's going to go straight from category to number of people. If you want to put in the expected number of people, you can. It doesn't have a red asterisk with it, so it's not required, so you could skip it as well. So the
And
second,
I'm sorry, can you go back for 1 second? Did you say you could put in more than one ministry on the category?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put it 2, 3, however many you want to put,
Okay.
because some things overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the second page is where we're going to actually reserve something. Because unless your event is offsite or unless it is virtual, it should always be reserving something. That's either going to be a space and or a resource and or a service. So these are 3 separate lists of things that you can reserve in eSpace. It's depending on what your admin puts in there, because everybody puts different things on this list. Typically, the space one at least has all of your rooms in your building. So for this, because there's a hierarchy going on here, I would want to expand before I select something. If I toggle on Family Life Center, it's going to assume, the system, eSpace, is going to assume that that means you want every single one of these child spaces under this parent space.
And I did add Conference Center, Rhonda, to the Family Life Center.
Yep, right here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just make sure to expand first and then select the individual space underneath. Don't select like a whole location, because that's going to auto select every single child space underneath that parent one. So for this one, as long as I get a green arrow or a green check mark, I'm good to go. So I could pick 2 of these. I'll just go ahead and do that for our example today. So this is the room. The second thing is going to be the resource. This is usually the physical object that you're going to use in the space, which could be, again, anything your admin puts here. Different admins will put, podiums, and then they do all the tables, chairs, drink containers, laptops, projector carts, vans, buses, grills, whatever that happens to be for you guys. There's still a hierarchy going on. So we, of course, are going to want to expand. So for you guys, you're very music focused. And what's great is you can say if you want the keyboard, you can say also for these, how many of something you want, because your admin is telling you there's 18 of these long 6-foot tables available to be requested at one time. So as soon as all 18 are gone, it's going to tell the very next user, hey, there is no more of this item available to reserve. This ensures that you're never overbooking any of that item. Same thing with this one or any of these. So this is really helpful. It just means you need to type in how many of something you want. So I can put in a number, I can click the word save. Again, the green check mark means there was still 1 for me to reserve. I could do 2 on this one. Okay, great. And for example's sake, we'll just go with some chairs. Okay. And we'll go with the service. This is the last thing on the list, last of the tabs. So this is the human being interaction. This is how you're going to tell them, I need a person to do something. So I need a person to play keyboard, do projectors, to set up the screens, to set up the televisions, the cork board. I need somebody as an AV tech for my event. The human interaction, that's always going to be on the service. So just make sure for every event you're checking each of these tabs because they all relate to something different. And then the last thing, if you are not the person that needs to get calls and emails and questions about the event, you just happen to be the eSpace user that's adding it. But let's say you're a Bible study leader or a volunteer or somebody who's not even in eSpace, they are actually going to be the person that is the contact of the event. It's not you, the event owner, it's somebody else. That is typically why the contact would get added. Otherwise, it's assumed you're the owner. I need to send all my questions and concerns about the event to you. So if you need to add a contact and they're not on this list down below, you've got 2 pages. You can also search for people. You can always add them yourself. If they're not down here, you're going to click add new contact, fill out the information. If you want to save them for down here for later, just remember to check this box before you click save. So this is the last thing, and then we could submit. But at this point, we have not communicated anything to facilities about where do I want these resources? How do I want these tables and chairs set up? I've just said I want them. So if I need to add those details, I want to save and add more details. This, at this point, by clicking this, is going to transition us to the bigger option that we would have gotten to if we had just clicked on add event. So let's transition. And now it's going to pop us on the setup tab, because the setup tab is exactly that tab where we're going to enter notes about any space, resource, or service. It's also where we're going to get to fill out any forms. If your admin has added forms, and they have in this example for AV Tech, every time you say, I want an AV Tech person, well, they need more information. So they have a form attached to this that you're going to have to fill out every time, because it really helps them understand why you need, what are the expectations, what do you need them to do. So make sure you fill this out. So actually, to fill it out, we're just going to click on it. You're going to answer however is appropriate and click save. And for all of these resources, like we need to assign them to a space. There's actually a really quick and easy way to do that in eSPACE. We can click edit, and we can actually just select from the rooms that we've requested. If I request both, I can then actually say, well, how many of each item do I want in each space? And any other thing, if I need to say, I need the table set up in the middle of the room or on the far right-hand side, or at the front by the door for food. Again, whatever those special instructions are, you can always add those.
And where did you click that? How did you get to that?
You're going to click edit right here, the item. So for this, I've got 2 of these. It's telling me I picked 2, and I'm going to assign them to both spaces, and I'm just going to say I want 1 in each.
Okay.
And then for the last one, I've got chairs. So I'm going to have to assign that to something as well. And we'll just say, we want 10 in each of those spaces, and we can just say 5 on each side of the table in each space. So now all of this info is what the admin is going to review. It's also what facilities is going to see if they log in on the app or if they print out the setup report. And then for any other notes you need to add about the space, you could add that up here. Again, I'm just clicking edit way over here, and that gets me a pop-up notes section for each of the spaces, resources, and services. But once you're done adding your notes and once you're done filling out forms, you can submit if you want. And if there's anything else you need to do, you could still flip through the other tabs. None of these tabs are required. When you're done, submit it for approval. Because like I said, as long as it's in draft mode, you haven't officially reserved these spaces and resources. So you want to submit as soon as you can. If you need to, you can edit it. You can edit your event when it's pending. You can edit your event once it's been approved. If you're the owner of it, you can always edit anytime you need. So for training purposes, we are going to go through the rest of the tabs, but just again, they're not required. But the currents tab, this is where we can change one thing. We can change like one of those Fridays without affecting the other ones. Like, let's just pretend for June 30th, I needed to cancel, the leader is going to be out of town. When you cancel, that's actually very different than deleting. Cancel, it will show crossed out on the internal calendar view. It'll say the word canceled with it. But if you delete it, it just poops into thin air. There's no message in its place that says it's been deleted. It's just like wiped from our servers. It's a permanent deletion, which means if you delete an occurrence or if you accidentally delete an entire event, you're deleting it from our servers. There's nothing we can do to bring it back. So be very, very cautious when you delete. We always encourage people to cancel instead. The other benefit to canceling is you can set a reason for canceling, and your reason, as long as you type out something, is going to get recorded on the history tab of the event. So people can see why was that occurrence canceled, which is very helpful. That's actually the last tab that we'll go over in our example today. So then we've got everything else, right? I could expand any of these other Fridays and do things like, maybe I want to edit the date and time. Maybe I want to change out the space. Maybe I don't want the conference room this time. I would rather be in 103. I can just switch that around because it's telling us at the very top that we're only looking at July 28th. my change that I just made only applied to the occurrence of July 28th. So if I go back to occurrences, again, any other thing that I expand, I could change the resource, I could change the service in the same way. It's going to bring up a similar page. So those are all of your options. Now for schedules, this is typically a different way of adding an occurrence. So let me just go with a different example of like a wedding. Weddings, the events typically that people want posted on the calendar on their website is, you know, whoever's getting married. This is Jack and Janice wedding. That's the name of the event, but the schedule on it is going to say, well, on this day at a certain time, they're going to have a rehearsal, right? Because typically weddings all come with a rehearsal, and that rehearsal is always the day before. It's not the same time as the ceremony. There was a rehearsal, which is a schedule that would get added. And then some people add another schedule that at the same day as the ceremony, but at a different start time and end time, they're going to have the reception, because the reception comes after the ceremony. So, or if this was like a conference, a multi-day conference, you could have each day be a schedule, or you could set it on the main details tab to be daily from Friday to Sunday. And then the schedule would be something in addition to something special happening each of those days. The schedule on Friday could talk about an extra, you know, prayer meeting that's going to happen. And then the schedule on Saturday could be a book signing. And then again, something different on Sunday. So if it's not a set pattern of something happening like every single week, every single month, happening every single day at the same start time, it's not going to be occurrence related. You're going to want to set that event with different schedules on it.
Can we add wedding in that schedule just so I can see how it looks when we save it?
Sure. Let me actually, I'd have to go back to this page.
No, under scheduler.
I know, but I just have to change it back to say wedding.
Oh, got you.
So
Oh,
you
got
can
you.
keep track. And then the schedule would be, this would be the rehearsal.
Rehearsal. Okay, got you. Yeah.
Mhm. And then, so we would say, okay, so I made mine for Friday. We'll just pretend the rehearsal is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Or the day before. This is going to be, you know, people get off of work and then they're going to be here for like an hour, walk up and down the aisle. It's not going to be reoccurring. It's just going to happen this one day. And then if you want to copy any items like the space, you can, but like if the rehearsal is going to be in a different space for whatever reason, you wouldn't want to copy over the space, resource, and service that you initially booked on this event.
Okay.
So you're going to want that to be different. So we could add this schedule. And so now we're looking at the rehearsal of it. And so for the rehearsal, where do I want that to be space-wise? Well, maybe just if they just need to practice like for music timing and you go, I'm sorry, we already have our sanctuary booked for something else. You guys are going to have to practice in, I don't know, the chapel instead of the sanctuary.
Okay.
They switch rooms. So this, now we're looking at the rehearsal. So when you have a schedule, what happens over here is you now have a drop-down menu to see, are you on the main event or are you on the schedule of that event? And you have to make sure what you're selected on. Because if I switch back over to wedding, this is the main event. And then if I change anything, it's only affecting this. Right now it says rehearsal.
Okay.
So it's happening in a different space. We've already set it on the main details tab to be at a different time the day before. And then I could go back to wedding and I could go back to schedules. And then I could add a separate one that says, now here we're going to have the reception, which is typically going to happen the same day as the wedding. It's just going to be like right afterwards. So I think I set mine for Friday. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll just say it's going to be for like an hour afterwards. Oh, have to pick the right date. So again, we're going to not copy. You can add the schedule because if the reception's not in the sanctuary or worship center, you're again want to pick a different space. So maybe we say they're going to have their reception in, I'm trying to find a big room that would make sense. The multi-purpose room. That probably makes sense. So now we've got another schedule there. Let me go back to the main event. It might not look the same because I've also got mine set to be reoccurring. Let me see if I can turn off and update this page. Okay, here we go. So here are both of my schedules. I've got a rehearsal, I've got a reception, but then here's the actual event.
Okay.
And so the flexibility there is each of these are happening at a different time. And at this point, we made them all in different spaces, but it's all attached to the same event.
Okay. That's good. Okay.
Okay, so the last tab that you would see typically is going to be the summary. If you want to print it, if you want to email it to somebody who needs to see it, again, especially if they're not an eSPACE person, you could say, here's the summary of the event that I added. And then there's actually 2 more tabs that I'm going to explain just for training purposes. The first of those being the conversations tab, because there's always those events where you email back and forth between different staff members, all these details, you ask questions, you have all this planning. And it's hard, a year from then, or maybe even several months down the road, it's hard to look back at those emails because you get so many emails. You want to have all the planning details about an event attached to the event in eSPACE where it gets recorded as part of it. You're going to want to go to the Conversations tab, click on Add New Conversation. And just like an email, you're going to have an initial comment. You're going to put in a subject line. If you wanted to add any type of file, people will add seating charts, pictures of things, brochures, pamphlets, spreadsheets, whatever it is that you want to add, do that, just like you would in an email. And you're going to have that conversation with somebody in eSPACE. Or if you set an outside person, remember, like your head of Bible study or a volunteer as the contact on the event, then that is how you can have a conversation with the person outside of eSPACE. Otherwise, it's assumed that they are an eSPACE user. To get the whole list of all the users, just go to users outside of the event. So here's everybody. And you just are going to choose somebody, and then you're going to click Start Conversation. It is going to email them and say, hey, this person started a conversation with you. It's going to have your title. It's going to have your initial comment and attachment if you've added that. And whatever they say back, as long as they're replying back to that same email thread, it's going to be put back here.
Okay.
But if they're an eSPACE staff member, they could also sign in on the app if that's more preferred for them. They could sign in on their computer and then respond back. But now you're going to have a historical record of what that conversation was, so you can view it later and refer back to it easily, because people look up events all the time. You have an event one time, you want to have it again. What did we do last year? Well, who booked it and who was the owner and what, how many people attended and, how did they plan it out? Have this be part of the planning details. All you're talking back and forth. If you want to add a third person, they do have to be invited. People can't just voluntarily jump on a conversation. Just like somebody can't just invade your inbox and start replying to an email that you haven't added them on. You're going to have to click edit and then add whoever that new user is.
Okay.
So the very last tab is going to be the history tab. And this is going to record everything that happens to the event, because at some point something will happen, because there's so many people editing the same thing. Something will happen to the event that you didn't do and you didn't expect it. And you're wondering if there's an issue. So every time somebody emails support and says, this happened to my event, I don't understand, I didn't do this, can you tell me what happened? This is always the page that we're going to. This is actually the only way to know what happened to your event. This is the only place that we actually record those changes. So currently it just happens to say that everything's being done by Lisa, because it says who I'm logged in as. But we could submit this event. If somebody else, another admin edits it, it's going to have them at another line when they made that change, what change they made, and their name over here. So it's very easy to see if you go to the history tab on any event, what changes were made. Like everything we've done thus far has all been recorded. So even after it gets submitted, it'll be recorded. Even after it gets approved, it will be recorded. It's never going to stop being recorded because at some point, this is incredibly valuable for troubleshooting purposes. And this tab you can see on the app. If you're logged in on the app and go to your event, just change over to the history tab and you can see the whole record of what's happened to your event. So those are all the main tabs. Any questions so far?
Let me see. So when you went to conversations and click edit. And then I know where it says users outside events, the names popped up, but I didn't notice like names pop up when you clicked on just contacts, I think it was underneath.
Yeah, I haven't set a contact for this event.
Oh, okay. You have it.
So if you don't set one, there's not going to be an option.
Okay.
And if you need to, I mean, that's really easy to pop back over. Here's the contact tab. So if I needed to add somebody, I could do it and then I could start the conversation.
Okay. See, I thought that it was going to be all of the organizational contacts that's already in there pop up, but this is the ones that you set up for this particular event to become.
Right. Like if I added these up here, and if I added multiples, then I'd have multiple options back over here.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think that I don't have any questions. Do you all have questions?
Okay, so let's go back to the main details tab. Because there's some things, like I said earlier, when you click on quick event create, because it's meant to be faster and more simplistic, it skips stuff that is naturally in the add event option. So let me go over those parts that it skipped. So for instance, back when we did quick event create, you did not have the option to cancel the whole event, delete the whole event. You didn't have the option to copy it. These options are always going to be here if you start off with add event.
Okay.
Now, again, if you delete something, it's unrecoverable. We can't bring it back. You're deleting it from our servers. So try to always cancel. And then maybe if you confirm or you double check, then delete it.
Okay.
Now, the reason why people would copy is, let's just say that this is Spring Bible Study and you want to copy the event to basically copy all the information. So that way you don't have to start all the way over for the fall one, because the fall one is going to be just like the spring one. You just you're going to stop in the summer and then you're going to start back up. That's typically why people would set, here's a spring one and then here's a fall one. When you copy all the spaces, resources, services, all the setup details, this is all going to be copied over. You won't have to recheck this. You can if you want, but you don't have to. When you copy, it's also going to copy the start time and the end date. So the only piece you have to add is the start date and the end date, which is the same day. And then you can either set it to be reoccurring again. If you had already set it to be reoccurring, it's going to copy the reoccurrence. So typically it's just the starting date you're going to have to confirm. And if it's a fall schedule, you will probably change the name from spring to fall. That's about it.
Okay.
Now, if we go further down on this page, this time when we say that this is public, now we have more options. These options did not appear earlier when we were in the quick create version. Now that we're on the bigger option, we can add public notes. Now, this can be the same thing as the internal one, if that's really what you want. It could be the same description, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have internal things like must check with so-and-so about event 30 days prior. You put little reminders in for yourself, right? Any type of notes you want to add. It's not always literally the description of the event. If it is, you can just copy and paste it, but this is the public facing notes. And then if you want to add a public link, whether that's to registration, a website, the ministry's Facebook page, whatever that happens to be, you can add that. And same thing with the image. The image could be, again, the image of the church, the ministry or the literal event, special women's banquet. Maybe they have a special graphic that they want you to upload with it.
Mhm.
If you want to show the contact information on the public calendar, you can, you don't have to. It's another option. But as soon as I say that this is private, all those options go away. They're no longer here because they're not necessary if it's private.
Mhm.
Now, like I keep saying, if you're a user, you can't edit other people's events. You can only edit your own. So, which is also goes both ways. If you want to give somebody permission to edit your event as a user, you're going to have to add them as an event editor. And you can search for their name, or you can scroll up and down in the list. Oops, sorry. Or scroll up and down in the list, but they have to be an event editor.
Mhm.
And last but not least, under optional settings, if you want to add any type of file to the event in general, you can. If you want to get a reminder to extend your event, right? Because you can put it in for the max amount of occurrences, which is 100, but sometimes it needs to go more than 100 occurrences. So what most people will do is they set up a reminder. When that email comes into them, they typically will come to this page, and that's another reason why they would copy. Because like I said, it's going to copy setup details, forms, resources, spaces, all of that stuff. You don't have to re-enter that. And then all you do is you keep the same name and you adjust the date. All you have to do is touch the date, and it's going to copy for, if you put another 100 occurrences, or maybe it's only 25 occurrences, or maybe it's only 8 occurrences, whatever the number is.
So that reminder is not to say your event is happening tomorrow or your event is happening in the next 2 hours.
No, that is going to just send an email a month before the last occurrence end date.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Mhm.
Now for the one below it, this is kind of more along the lines of what you're describing. So let's say you're putting this event on the calendar months before it happens, because some things in a church or in a school, they get planned out 6 months in advance. Maybe they get planned out a year in advance. You could put it on the calendar ahead of time because you're a go-getter, but people will probably forget by the time it happens. So if you want to remind them, hey, this event that we put on way into the future on the calendar, it's now getting close, it's about to happen. You're going to want to have that reminder go to, maybe it's yourself as the event owner. You can also choose to include all the admins on the account, all the sub admins, and whoever you set as the event contact. Whatever of these you toggle on.
Okay.
And then you're going to say how many days in advance you want that reminder to go out.
Mhm.
And if there's a special note that needs to go along with it, like some stuff people will put in when the reminder comes in, by the way, we have to meet one more time to verify all details on whatever the date is. And then they say, to remind everybody, we have to meet one more time about this. Whatever your note needs to be, you can make it say whatever you want.
Okay.
So that's pretty much everything that you can edit or change on an event.
Okay.
So any questions?
So, what can you explain a sub admin again?
Yes. So a sub admin is somebody who does not need to approve the entire event. They need to approve part of the event, something that's being reserved, whether that happens to be certain spaces, certain resources, or certain services. That's why they would be a sub admin, and they would be given access to an approval area that includes items on one of these tabs.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are users allowed to enter an event?
Yes, users can always add events, they can see the calendar views, and they can run reports. That's about all they can do.
Okay. So that's what you are, Anita and James. I'm not sure if they're there or not.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Do y'all have any questions? Is everybody good with this? Because this is the final training. Okay. Yeah, they're good.
I'm good.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, so let's just talk about the calendar views.
Okay.
This is what you guys are going to go over most of the time to see all of the events.
Mhm.
Now there's a lot of views, different people like different ones. So I'm just going to show you most of them. I'm going to show you the most populars. So here's monthly. Now monthly has a lot of colors with it. It actually has the same color coding as daily, weekly, and agenda. So it's important to point out what these colors mean. Everything that is green, it's green because it's been approved. So if you don't see something that's green, it means it hasn't been approved. Your admin has chosen to show the national holidays here, so you will see that. You will also see other little symbols on the event, such as whether it's reoccurring or not, with the little arrows in a circle. And then whether or not this one has a resource on it. So it has this little resource symbol. And let me see if I see any others. So this one has set up and tear down time. So that's what these arrows are, up and down. And then you will see if they are virtual or offsite. Offsite is another colored tag that would be similar to this. And you got to get an example of what's being canceled here. So this occurrence is canceled. It wasn't deleted. It was canceled. And like I keep saying, it's now being crossed out and it shows the word canceled with it. So that's the benefit to having something canceled versus deleted. Now, let me see here. Okay, other colors that you'll see here, it is green. The background is green, so it has been approved, but the lettering is red, which means it's approved with conflicts. Actually, if you click on it, it will tell you exactly what that status is right next to the name of the event. And admins are typically the only ones set up with their permissions to be able to even be the ones to be allowed to submit an event that is in conflict with something else. Like if it's double booking another space or whatever the conflict is. Typically only admins can do that. Okay, yep, got all of that. So now there is condensed. Condensed is going to have less colors. It's not going to have all the little icons on it. It's a more simple looking view. It's kind of more black and white. The only colors you're going to see at this point are national holidays, virtual, and off-site. You do lose the space information here too. Of course, if you hover, like on a computer, or if you click on your phone, you can see all the details. But because this is a simplistic kind of summary of what's happening, this is still one of the popular views to print. For those of you who are still printing, if you need to do that, you can always come up here to actions, and then here's your print calendar button.
Okay.
So you can print the monthly one. You can also print the agenda one. I'll go back to agenda because we skipped this. This is a different kind of perspective. It's like a more vertical perspective. So here's the day, and then here's all the events in order, and it does show the space info. And again, they're all green because they've been approved. So this is another popular option for people to print. So do that if you need to. It's always going to show 7 days when you're on the agenda calendar view, but of course you can toggle back and forth. You can determine what those 7 days are. Now, at some point, hopefully there's so much going on in the church. You guys are so active that it's just going to make more sense to filter, because at some point everybody gets to that. You're going to want to filter. And I know people always tend to think that they can only filter by event categories, and you can still stick to that traditional option if you want. If you want to do 1, 3, however many you want to keep choosing in here, you're more than welcome to stick with that. But in eSPACE, you can also filter by any events that are happening in any of the spaces. You could say, I only want to see the things that are happening in the Family Life Center with all of these resources. Or if you wanted to see the events that were only requesting AV Tech, however you want to filter. You do by virtual, offsite, is it public or not? A lot of sub-admins will filter by their approval areas. So you have an AV approval area. Whatever you want, you can do a combination of things. So, or you could still stick with the traditional option. You could stick with the event category if that's what you prefer. Once you click to filter, obviously going to cut down the view on the month that you're looking at. So I think based on what I chose, and we don't have anything right now, but I can still explain this. If you ever see this message, this means there's still a filter enabled, because the filter is like, it's called temporarily sticky. It sticks programming wise for a certain amount of hours, and then the timer runs out and then you start over anyways. But if you ever come back to this page and you see clear filter, that's because the timer has not run out. So just make sure you clear it before you start another one.
Okay.
Now there's one other view that's really popular for people. It's the daily spaces. It's similar in principle to all the rest of them. I'm just going to show this one because again, this is the most popular. On this page, let's just say we want to go to September 21st. On September 21st, I can expand all of these. I can see the events that are happening and I can schedule from this page. That's the benefit. I know people used to run reports sometimes in Service View that would let them see all of the availability in spaces, or maybe it showed you where all of the events were happening. This view, you can still essentially do that, but you can also click anywhere that's open. All you have to do is double click and you can start reserving that space at that time and day for your event.
Oh, wow. Okay. So basically, this view shows is the time of the event. So weight loss time. Oh, if you hover over, okay.
Yep. If you hover over it, it's the same pop-up box. You'll still see more details about it. You want to double click on it and go to that event in eSPACE and look at all of the tabs of info. You can do that as well. For admins like you, Lisa, this is really helpful because since you can edit anybody's event, you could come here, you could look at something. If you noticed that something was wrong, like they just emailed me and said they were going to cancel July 20th. Why is July 20th still on the calendar? Well, you could cancel the occurrence for them if you wanted to.
Okay.
Or you could move them. A lot of admins will be on that view and a bigger event comes in and they're requesting to use the space, or maybe because they're going to pay to use the space. And then that person, you know what, we need to move them. So you could go ahead and move them and then rebook that space for whatever the second event is.
Okay. Cool.
So any questions about the calendar views or filtering?
No, that was good.
Okay, so let's go to reports. Now, there are a lot of them. Some of these are very different visually than what I'm going to show you. I'm just going to stick with the most popular view just for the sake of time. So that is Report Builder. But in your own time, if you don't like how Report Builder looks, try the other ones. Just export it once, you'll get a feel for it. It's pretty much the same format for each, within each of these. Depends on what you kind of set up date-wise and everything there. But the most popular one is Report Builder.
Okay.
So at the very top, there's a way to change between event list and all these other options. The two most popular of these is going to be event list and space usage. The reason why people flip over to space usage is because it gets them different columns of info. This whole list right here, this is all of the column headers of all the info. And below is what you're going to filter by. If you want to filter by days a week, you want to filter by approval areas, event categories, owners. If you want to filter by spaces, resources, and services, that's all fine. But at the very top, you're going to first define, well, what information do I even want? So when people flip over to space usage, it's because they want the space names, but also whatever notes people typed in on the setup tab. Because if people made a note and they said, I need a trash can placed in by the front door, the note that they type in is not going to come with the event list type. So they're going to switch over to space usage. And now here's the space and then space notes.
Okay.
Here, same thing for resources. So any notes people have manually typed in for any items on that setup tab, you're going to want to be on this view. And earlier in the example, we did fill out a form. If you want those forms, you're going to have to toggle this on.
Okay.
And again, you could filter it down here, but so some people say, I want that form info for the events that include maybe all this info. And then they say, but I only want it for the events that are actually requesting AV tech. That's all I care about. That's a really popular option. So just make sure you're filtering down here by AV tech. If you do not select anything, it's going to assume that you want events with all spaces, all resources, and all services on it.
Okay.
Now here.
Okay. So I created an event and I uploaded an attachment for setup style. So would you be able to put that into this report as well?
You can see, what is it? The configuration. a style name. It's going to be the description. Let me do this one, and then actually I'll show you the other most popular report because that might fit more what you're needing.
Okay.
Let me just make sure I get enough info here. I'm going to do next week. I'm going to leave all these defaults to be all, unless again you select certain options and any of the drop downs, it's going to default to all. Let's go ahead and run this report. And let me make sure I didn't mess up here. Otherwise, my internet might still be lagging. Okay, but next week, we said we want all of this. I don't have any of that dialed on. Okay. There we go. Okay, it was just lagging.
Okay.
So the benefit to having the report builder option is it opens in another web page. If you want at this point to convert it to Excel or PDF in order to print, you can do that. But in this page, you can sort. So a lot of people, they get to this page and then they click in here and then they start sorting by the space, or maybe they want to group all of the occurrences together. They'll then sort by either the event ID or the event name will get you the same results. So if something is weekly, all of those occurrences are going to show together. I mean, I only exported next week, so I don't think you have anything that's set to be daily. That would be the only way for us to see reoccurring at this point. Well, this one is, so this is daily. Whatever this event is, this is daily because it's the same exact event ID and name. That's helpful. So, but for your events, let's just say you were going to go out of town, you were going to be on maternity leave for a long time. You needed to make sure to double check all of your events and make sure you had somebody else set as the editor. Because if you're out of town or you're on maternity leave, you're not going to be able to edit your events while you're gone. You're going to need to give that access to somebody else, to another user. So people will typically come in here. They will then filter by themselves, right? They have to put their name in and filter. And then when they run the report, they're going to sort it, and then they can click on each of these. So let's just pretend these are all of my events. I need to get to all of these. See, it's opening it in a different web page. And then here's where I would scroll down for each of them. And if Anita needed to be my backup, I would keep selecting Anita, and then click update to update that event. And same thing for this event. I would add her name and then click the word update. And same for this event until I get through my whole list of whatever it is of my events. So that's most often how Report Builder is used. Because if you want to see what's coming up in the next week or the next month, you're going to look at a calendar view. You don't need a report for that. But if you need to change something, if you need a checklist of where are all of these events, let me make sure all the ones that are set to be offsite really are offsite. Let me make sure they all have an address in them. Let me make sure all of the ones that are requesting band instruments, see what their form responses are. You're going to use this like a checklist, and keep opening those events that you need to double check details about in other windows. And then you always have this one to, again, go down to the next one, keep opening, go down to the next one, open, check whatever it is, make changes. That's going to be the benefit to Report Builder. Otherwise, you're probably going to stick with the calendar view.
Okay.
They're over here. See the inventory items, the resources. If people had written notes in about the resources, they'd be here. So it looks like most of your events don't have those. But we have the resources. We have space notes. Some people are adding space notes. Again, that's why you would flip over to the space usage report from the event list, because you want to see this stuff right here.
Right.
And anybody who has a contact, here's the contact. I don't think on this report, I was looking at your configuration. Oh, we only have one page for configuration. Okay, so I think what you're going to need is the other report. Let me show you that.
Okay.
So let's actually go back to reports. So under other reports, event setup, this is typically the report, especially for facilities that they end up walking around with. If you have to print a report and give it to them in their hand, and they need something that they can flip out of their pocket, quickly look at, easily see and visually recognize it's this event and this setup notes, this event and this setup notes. This is the option they tend to stick with.
Okay.
So you have a lot of the same filter options. I'm going to try to keep this apples to apples. I'm just going to go with next week. I'm going to leave all the defaults to all, but you were also talking about attachments. So here's where you want to show the attachments.
Okay.
Or if you also want to show forms, or if you also want to show the contact, you can do that as well. Now here's the attachment. So let's run this report, which is going to be different. It's going to be a very different view, and that's on purpose. Because if you think about it, some guy's pulling this in and out of his pocket all day long, in between fixing stuff, cleaning stuff, then setting up for other events. They need to quickly be able to look and see, this is the name, here are the main details of the event, and here's what they're requesting and any setup notes they have.
Okay.
Or for like down here, let me see. So here we're requesting some spaces, and if there were setup notes or configuration styles, they would be entered here. And if the same thing for the resources. So the space, the resource, and if there was service, they're always going to be separate because those notes are separate. It's itemized. It's very visual here. So this is a cleaner look. It just happens to be longer. Okay, good. We have a real life example too. Okay, great. So this is the space they want. This is the note they typed in. They need a large multi-purpose room space with tables and chairs for 15 people. So they didn't say what type of tables, rectangular or circle, but they at least said they need enough for 15 people.
Okay.
And this is what they would be reading. Now, if you want to cut down this view, because like for all of these that don't have any notes, that means that there's nothing for facilities to do. As long as those people have filled it out correctly. I'm going to assume that they filled it out correctly. And if there's nothing here, that means facilities does not need to do anything. This is going to get the standard setup. So in that case, what most people will do on this is they will filter by events that only have setup notes and configuration styles.
Okay.
For the people that they did not type anything in, so it's assumed that they're okay with the regular standard setup of that space. We're going to filter by that, and then we'll run a different report. So now instead of this long list, right, we only get this. There's only 2 events where they have typed in. Again, here's the one about needing a large multi-purpose room with 15 people. And then this one, they requested the classroom, room 210, capacity is 25. And the note they typed in was also requesting a CD player. So now this is a much shorter list for facilities to look at next week.
And you can print that out.
Yes, and here's the print option at the very top.
Okay. This is pretty good.
So I didn't see with the other report though, any attachments. Maybe it's just, it's not on the event happening next week. Include attachments?
Yeah, it already passed. It was Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, you would see it. It will actually tell you on this report style, it will tell you the name of the attachment.
Okay.
That's all that's missing there essentially.
Okay.
But any other questions about reports?
Not for me. You good on running reports, Rhonda? Okay. Excellent.
All right. I mean, that's typically everything that we would go over in this training. So are there any other questions you guys have just in general? Any specific events you want to look at?
Yeah, I do have a question. I want to show it to you. Okay. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So on so you helped me with how to send information to our church app that we have for the public view.
Right.
And once you click on, so this is for public, like the public option, when you put the event in eSPACE and you make it public, then it'll show up on our mobile app. Well, once you click on the particular name of the event, it will give you this information. So this is a spiritual development leadership face-to-face that we're having at one of our locations. Well, this is for all of our events. In order for persons to see where the event is, they would have to press their phone, highlight the URL, and then say open link to see that this is at the Security Boulevard location in the conference center. So I don't know what option in eSpace I have to activate so that people can see like so people can see which space they are set up in, as opposed to clicking on this, because this is not, it's not a hyperlink. You physically have to, do the long press and then open link to see where you will be, your event is actually happening.
So is this an email from the app?
Well, I just copied this from my phone and sent it to myself
Oh, okay.
so that you can see what I see on our mobile app. So
let me
let me stop sharing.
get one other thing.
Okay.
Mhm. Do you mind also sending that to me?
Sure. Anita, you need to go on mute. Okay.
Okay, so let me go back.
So send that to you.
Yeah, if you could email that to me.
Okay.
Okay, so is it this public calendar that's going to your app?
No, this is actually what goes to our website. You told me to go to, you sent me an email and told me to go to.
Oh, you're subscribing with Outlet, Google, or Apple.
Yes.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me actually go to a different spot then.
Right. So I copied that URL at the bottom, and I added that to our mobile app for a public calendar.
So what type of public calendar do you have in the app? Is it Google or Outlook?
It's Fellowship One.
Oh, okay. So they have a way for you to copy in a URL or paste
It's
URL.
called iCal.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they have.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't know what we would be able to do because this is typically for Google, Outlook, and Apple. And you can do it for any iCal, but once it leaves our system, we don't really have any control over it. I don't know if there would be something that Fellowship One could do, because they're taking the URL and defining what information is displaying in the URL.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. See where it says URL to subscribe to your events in Google. And then right under that, it gives you the HTTPS eSpace cool public iCal events version number 2. So is there a difference between, so what is that? What is that whole thing? Is that the same thing that's under this copy URL? Or what is that link?
Well, you'd be copying this. I don't know if this is the same thing or not. I'd have to, let me see if I can copy and put this in a different URL.
Okay.
No, version 2. It looks like it is the same thing. It still says version 2. It still says 1654.9. Public.
Okay, so it's the same thing.
I think it's the same thing.
Okay, so.
Oh, that's what it is. It's just displaying based on the options you have. See how it changed?
Oh, okay.
That's all that it is. It's just telling you like what it's going to be based on the options you choose.
So if I choose those options and then copy the link, it might show up.
Well, this is to exclude spaces. This is how
yeah.
these are the options that we give you to edit it. But outside of that, and it might be just because it's mainly built for integrating with Google, Outlook, and Apple, we did have to define it a certain way. Maybe that's why it's not working in Fellowship One. It just also could be that Fellowship One isn't displaying it, and they should have control. Like if they give you the ability to paste in a URL, it's because they've set up that feature, but they're also defining how that feature works. So
Okay.
it might still have to be a question that goes to them over, can you make it so that this URL, I mean, it doesn't show the URL, you just want it to outright display the spaces because it's
Mhm.
being included. We're
Mhm.
giving it to you because you're not excluding spaces here. So it is
Right,
included in this, but it's not showing.
right.
But typically when this type of thing happens is because it's not our system. I can't tell you how they're making the URL or anything that we're giving you display. But it's once
Okay,
in their system, they really have the rights over how they coded it to display in their own system.
okay. So when it says that you can integrate with Fellowship One, what information?
If you're talking about
Seeing that.
down here,
Mhm.
yep, let me check one other thing real quick.
Okay.
Most of these integrations
Mhm.
are built so that as people continue to use most of these, they want to continue to enter events in whatever it is that they're using, Brock, Shelby, Next Planning Center, whatever. Well,
Mhm.
these people also wanted a way to use facility space. They wanted a way for their HVC, their doors and digital signage to get scheduled. Well, none of the
Oh,
companies provide that integration. We do. So then they kept asking us, well, how can we integrate with you guys to use part of your product, but then not have to enter events in Event Scheduler? So we created partnerships with most of those so that we could do exactly that. So for Fellowship One, yep, it falls under that list. We are integrating with them so that people can continue to use Fellowship One as their calendar. And all eSpace does is basically pull in the start time, end time, the start and end date, and the space info so that it can send it over to facility space to then schedules people's air, doors, and digital signage for them.
oh, okay, and we don't have that feature.
Well, I mean, if you're already using eSpace as your calendar, you would have to stop using eSpace as your calendar, put all of the events in Fellowship One, and then you could integrate.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you.
It's only a one direction sync.
Oh, yeah.
Events would be put in Fellowship One only, sync to eSpace, but only for the purpose of pushing it through facility space.
Okay. Okay, well, good. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, we get asked about this a lot. I mean, I think especially since people moved over from, Service U and some of you guys still have Fellowship One, your Fellowship One Premier people. So,
Mm-hmm.
So
and
what about the planning center integration? Because we also
so
use the planning center.
Mm-hmm.
planning center, it depends on which way you want to sync it. It can only go one direction. So either the events can only be put in eSpace and go to planning center, or they would only be in planning center and then come to eSpace. If you
Okay.
sync to push events to planning center, they still define, like a lot of these companies, we don't all use the same programming language. It's not like the way that you enter the event in eSpace is exactly how it's going to transfer over to any of these other companies.
Okay.
We have to build
So,
these in order to like be compatible with them. So for ministry platform, if it's going to go from us to them, you actually have to sync every event individually. That's the only way that the integration works. So people tend to add that to their approval process. Once an admin approves an event, then they're going to sync all of those occurrences to ministry platform. And there's additional info that ministry platform requires to be filled out in the eSpace event before it's allowed to sync. Otherwise, their servers won't listen to ours. So there's additional info that has to be entered, and then it would be synced over.
So who would help us with that if we wanted to do that?
I mean, I can send you the instructions. You follow like a few set of instructions and then it's just set up. There's only one thing that I have to do on the back end to basically allow the integration to start. And then it takes about 15 minutes after you're basically going to put in like your login credentials. Once you say, no, here you go, ministry platform.
Okay.
Like once you put it in, you're just going to actually, the integration guide is right here. So if you
okay.
follow these steps, this is what you'd have to follow. Most of it is happening in your ministry planning account. So it's not something that we would be able to help with anyways. And then it's just going to tell you to go right where we're already looking and then enter the provider, which is ministry platform, put in your client ID and in your client secret that is coming from that other account.
Okay, is it an extra fee for that?
I do not believe that we charge for this, but I should double check. Just because I handle so much more of the actual integrations that we charge for. So if it's not listed on our website, then the answer is going to be no.
Okay,
This is all cool space. So no, we don't charge to sync event data.
okay, good.
Mhm.
So that might be helpful for y'all, James, with the planning center being integrated. Like if it'll automatically go over.
It won't automatically go over though.
I mean, well, once they set the event up, they choose that they want to sync it with the
Yes.
center, then it'll go, right?
Yes, that button will actually specifically be on. I can show you where it's going to appear.
Okay,
You sync the two. It's going to be on the occurrence tab.
okay,
So if I can get to this test event, which I gotta delete anyways, it will actually be right up here. It's somewhere right over here. I don't remember exactly where, but it will say sync to ministry platform.
okay,
Mhm.
cool.
And you just want to make sure for simplicity's sake that every single edit about that event is made before you sync it. It gets tricky if you have to edit it because ministry platform basically assumes that all the info on the event is correct first before they take it, and then it's more complicated to edit it.
Okay. All right.
So just like double check and make sure everything's ready to go before you sync over.
Okay.
But yes, once you're ready, so basically you would just come back
Mhm.
and once you download the guide, all you're going to do is click integrate now. I mean, here it is. You're going to put in all the info, just like what that knowledge base article says. Click save, wait about 15 minutes, and then you should see on each of the events that button will appear. But like I
Mhm.
said, it does have extra fields that then all of a sudden MP will need. So you'll see that for any events that you've entered in already.
Okay. Okay, cool.
And then you'll get to sync. You'll have a sync button right here.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So just to be clear, you said if they after they sync it, if they realize that they missed information or they need to edit information, it's harder to do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the specifics on that one because we haven't had too many tickets in that in a while.
We could probably just do a test or something once we.
I think the
Mhm.
problem it tends to just be with like occurrences, like if it syncs all of the occurrences and then you make a change to one.
Mhm.
I remember being occurrence related, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the most common thing is. I think once you change something on occurrences, then you have to resync every occurrence. Because for some reason, the ministry platform won't allow the data to just like overwrite. Like it won't allow our server to just say, hey, this info was incorrect. Never mind, here's the correct version. And then it says, okay, let me delete what I have and re-add.
Okay.
For whatever reason, their software doesn't do that. It then
Mhm.
says, well, now you've got to sync every occurrence.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, well, this was good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And if you have any other questions, just email support. And I was going to end on that anyways, if no one else has anything else. If you don't find what you need in knowledge-based articles, which I would say integration wise, we're building out a lot right now. So there's probably going to be some stuff missing anyways,
Mhm.
but we hope to get that added soon. Actually actively working on it.
Mhm.
And that's for integrations for HVC doors, digital signage, all the calendar ones. But so if you don't find what you need, or if you want to report a bug, we definitely want that to be reported ASAP. So
Mhm.
anybody can do that in their eSPACE account by clicking on support. And then
Mhm.
it's going to be this bottom option right here. Just to explain real quick, this is the search option for the knowledge-based articles. It will
Mhm.
often suggest top articles to you depending on what you're currently viewing when you
Mhm.
select help and then support. But this
Okay.
bottom section that says create ticket, this is how
Mhm.
you're going to reach support. And I know it's counterintuitive to say if you don't call on a phone and you create a ticket, this is actually faster. It is
Mhm.
actually faster because our software that we use for the ticketing system, each
Mhm.
of those tickets is assigned to a real person, whether that is literally me or one of my coworkers. And just
Mhm.
like how I'm logged in as one of you guys today, We can impersonate any user on anybody's account. We can look and see what you're seeing. If it is event related, the number one piece of information we need is this event ID.
Okay.
You don't have to give us the name. If you could just copy this part in, paste this into the ticket and say, whatever the issue is, hey, I'm trying to edit the setup detail and it won't let me. Or I'm getting this specific error message. Or, I tried to cancel this occurrence and it wouldn't let me. The more detailed you can get, the better. There's a lot of features in eSPACE. There's a ton of code. So if we ever have to send something to our developers, we just have to get as specific as possible so they know exactly where to go and quickly, fix whatever it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So yeah, just send in a ticket if you have any other questions about, it could be, ministry platform, or anything else. Okay, I can definitely help you guys out with that. And because this is actually, like you said earlier, this is the last hour of training. So I'm going to send you this recording, Lisa. Remember to download it to keep it permanently.
Okay.
Again, you've still got long-term, everything under help, knowledge-based articles, the community space to talk to people about, weekly webinars, if you want to purchase additional training, and then of course you can reach out to support. With you guys, let me just double check. Okay, you've got the basic customer care plan, which means anything you send it to support, we respond in 1 business day.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going to make
So
sure.
just to be clear, so if we went to webinar to set up another Zoom session, that we wouldn't be able to get that because this is our last hour of training, or is the webinar a recording where you would not be charged?
No, these webinars are live and they're free. You just register for them.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying, like, you just want to ask a question, get a live answer. That's the best way to do it. Or if you want to see what the work order module is all about, we already do a live demo about those in that webinar. So, and if you add any staff members that want a live demo of Event Scheduler, we go over both of those modules every week in those, unless they've changed it like super recently. But as far as I know, that's what they're still doing.
Okay.
But you can still ask live questions, get live answers. I would still join those. I mean, I personally know lots of service you people have told me that they've joined those and it's been helpful.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Well, I will let you guys go for now. And congratulations on being officially migrated over. And I hope that you guys enjoy our product and our customer service, and hope to serve you guys as best we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I appreciate your help.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.